Hi, Steve Hayes here, and welcome to Days Are Getting Better, episode 36. Have a bit of a cold and fighting off, so if my voice sounds funny, that's why. In today's episode, I want to talk a bit about cooperation, community, and division. And I'm going to link it to some of the things that are happening worldwide and maybe some of the things that are happening post election. I want to talk about the Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Therapies, ABCT, having spent several days there and just got back from the conference, and things that I saw there that I thought were kind of cool. I'm going to mention a bit about just sort of mention a book series that is coming. I'm not quite ready to announce it, but I do want to give you kind of a heads up warning and maybe a couple other topics. So let's get to it. I think there's a sense among many of us that the world is changing in ways that are a little scary right now. There's a sense of fear and trepidation about the future. So many things are changing. I just, dropped my son off to his freshman year at Purdue, and if you're in a moment like that, and you're thinking about the future and how it would impact your kids, I bet you're a little worried too. It kind of doesn't matter what area of the country, or in fact what country, or what you do. Very likely that's the sense that you're going to have. The world is changing very, very rapidly. And when that happens, there's an evolutionary science principle that explains why cooperation gets harder. We know, and there's good data on this, that groups rely on a variety of skills within the group in order to be able to come together when they can learn how to cooperate and compete well with other groups. Having diversity, in other words, a range of skills and abilities and interests, is a strength. And you can kind of see it in the so-called wild monkey phenomena, where bands of primates maintain a genetic diversity that includes some members of the troop that are more cautious and some that are more outgoing and wild. And when push comes to shove and the context changes, or when new opportunities arise and so forth, that's a strength. But at the same time, evolutionary theory will give you, down to a mathematical level, I was tempted to actually share the formula with you and then said, no, I don't think I'll do that. But you can look at the degree of between individual differences within a group and see it as a dynamic that inhibits, as differences emerge there, that inhibits cooperation. Let me give you an example. Suppose I picked a trait. Let's say, competitiveness. If everybody in the troop is similarly competitive, and I'm pretty competitive, and so is everybody, if I get even more competitive, I know the other folks here are pretty darn competitive. Plus, if I get more competitive, they know how to get more competitive. And we may have a race up. Meanwhile, we're spending more and more resources doing that within the group. How about the challenges that we face of the group towards external challenges or with other groups? And so, similarity in competitiveness, regardless of the level, predicts greater cooperation, because the cost-benefit ratio within the group versus coming together to cooperate to reach the challenges outside have changed. Now, if what you're hearing is that I'm saying that diversity is a negative, no, I'm saying diversity is an opportunity and a challenge. And you can see that when there is a lot of movement of people, ideas, traditions, language, religion, and so forth, when it moves about during those periods, when that has happened historically across the history of the world, cooperation sometimes gets harder to establish. However, if you're able to, then those can provide the range of alternatives can provide seed corn for an increased ability to be able to benefit from cooperation. So it's a weird kind of balancing of a static system inside a dynamic system. What does this have to do with our current situation? Well, I think one of the things it says is anything that we do that increases the divisiveness within the cultural communities that we're part of will also decrease the cooperation and connection that's possible within those groups. So we need to be really careful, because there are ways that particular politicians or groups can benefit from a language of division and from deliberately fostering division, and that can happen. And it's not a respecter of left and right. You know, if you want to wag your finger at the opponent folks and view them as lesser than in some way, you know, let's take the last election where the college-educated population versus non-college educated population separated out more than we've seen for many years. You know, if you're non-college educated, you feel maybe that you're being a little left behind, you're not being listened to, you're not being respected, and here you got these hoity-toity folks wagging fingers. And even if the language is one of cooperation, you know, we're stronger together. Yeah, but if it has that kind of finger-wagging quality to it, it's just not going to work, because it'll foster a sense of division. And the same thing from right to left. So I think what we're being asked to do is to find a place in which there's a greater sense of equanimity and connection at an experiential level with others, along with the skills psychologically and socially and biologically that allow us to enter into differences with a sense of equanimity. And so in the usual ACT speak way of talking about this kind of more spiritual, transcendent, witnessing, noticing sense of self as context, is one that from which you can connect in consciousness with others. And the risk to that is the conceptualized self, the story, the narrative self. Whether you're great and grand or the lowest of the low, it doesn't matter. In either case, you've separated yourself from the group. I'm great, I'm low. And you're going to see in that story less of a healthy interest in genuine cooperation, detachment, and working together. There's a concept that's in the ACT work that hasn't been talked about in a while, which is the conceptualized other. And this is sort of the cognitive extension, cognitive in the relational learning sense, of the kinds of things that the evolutionary biologists are talking about when they look at genetic diversity or phenotypic diversity of different kinds, cultural practice diversity, etc., and view it as an inhibitor towards multi-level selection that is where coming together within a group makes you stronger and being able to compete with other groups. That multi-level selection process, I believe, is one argument about where cooperation comes from evolutionarily. But once we have language involved, that also means that it isn't just the physical group we're dealing with, it's the conceptual group that we're dealing with. And it turns out, I think that we can do a magnificent job of redefining the group to mean the whole of us, but we can't just do it by finger wagging. Part of what's exciting about some of the work in ACT or in things like psychedelic assisted therapy and the sense of oceanic awareness and connection across time, place, and person is that we're learning a little more about how, at an experiential level, to foster a sense of other as context, if you wanted to use that word, of this more spiritual and transcendent sense that's there in others. In classic ACT exercises, if you're looking at somebody in their eyes for a period of time, when I'm doing that kind of exercise, I sometimes say, and what has to change for that person to be acceptable for who they really are? And the answer almost screams that the answer is nothing. And it doesn't matter who's sitting across from you. Metaphorically, we need to be able to do that across all these divides. And there's so many of them. And every group, it's really kind of built in, sometimes thinks as though, or seems to act as though they think that if they can just foster division around that one thing, they'll be able to bring the group together. The problem is this different political group, or this different religious group, or this different language group, or this different educational group, or this set of belief practices, or now the actually doing it, of course, is challenging. And so let's start with ourselves, with our families, with our clients. Let's start where we are and find a way to connect in consciousness with others and find the commonality that occurs that can bring us together, not just by something you say or something that you wish would happen, but as something that's part of the experienced reality of being human. I hope that's of some use. Not sure it will be, but just be a little cautious about this tendency to kind of ally with whomever's listening to you and talking to you, and do a lot of ain't it awful pointed at others. I spent a few days at the Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Therapy, and I was just really hit by two senses. One is that the CBT evidence-based therapy universe has been expanding so much, but has reached a place where it's not clear how to progress. Our effect sizes are flat or falling down. I think yet another named therapy in the alphabet soup of therapies is very unlikely to be all that helpful. And I could feel it in the halls and see it in the conversations. But the other thing I could see and feel was the range of issues that if you've been following Days Are Getting Better, you're going like, wow, that's the kind of stuff that maybe connects with what we're trying to do in the more contextual behavioral science wing. In presentation after presentation, there were topics such as, I've got an actual list here. Let me just blast through a few. So there are processes of change, ecological momentary assessment, research, collecting longitudinal data, transdiagnostic processes, complex networks, idiographic analysis, process-based therapy, of course, the stuff that Stefan and I, Joe, Bob Ginger, and others, I should have started naming names. It's such a long list of names now that are involved. Excuse me for that. But, the things that have been more things I've generated, process-based therapy, yeah, of course that's there, but also person-specific treatments, kernels, longitudinal analysis, precision psychology, idiographic case conceptualization, idionomic analysis, things that are close to home, digital health, um, the role between mental health and physical health, AI tools, AI tools focused on the particular person, uh, putting skills into persons who are involved in behavior change in a number of different areas, coaches, OTs, PTs, and not just psychologists and the like. So I was really excited. I was a little kind of say, okay, we're at a place of enemy, and what are the next thing? Sort of sense of normlessness. That a transition point is hit, and at the same time, seeing all these different topics happening. Because of a book series that I will announce the next time out in process-based approaches to empirical practice. I'll say who and how it's organized in the next episode. We and the company I'm working with brought together dozens of people who were working in these areas and had a reception. And I'm watching as people from very different parts sort of come together. They don't know each other, and within minutes they're like, wow, this relates to this and this relates to that and that. So it was a joy to see, and I had a real sense of something's happening here that's important. So keep your eye on it, and follow that list of topics I just gave you. And don't be thinking that just process-based therapy, the way Hayes and Hoffman wrote about it, to sort of get the thing going, is the only dog in that pen. That's just important but particular push forward on a whole range of topics that overlap like a big Venn diagram. And I predict it's going to be really, really important to us as the field in general of evidence-based therapy. I have some other things that I could say about apps and PsychFlex and MindGrapher and Boot Camp and all kinds of cool stuff that bear on this same theme, but I'm going long, so I think I'm going to let it stop there. But let me just say this part as a way of concluding. I don't know if anybody else felt, but this, the title of this series that is now number 36 is Days Are Getting Better. And some days you may get up and kind of look at your screens and think that, oh my God, days are not getting better. I would ask you to slow down, own up, show up, and look a little deeper at that. In almost every metric that human beings care about, it's an objective fact that days are getting better. People live longer. They're healthier. They have less physical disease, and on it goes, less in the way of true poverty and so forth. Yes, I know there are problems. I'm not being Pollyanna here. But at the same time, we're living in a world in which these divisions and the fear of the future. I've got a boy who has gone to Purdue, and do I worry about my youngest son? Yes, I do, and what his future will be. If you're a parent, you're probably having that same sense about your children, and if you're just looking around the world, you have that same sense. But coming out of ABCT and looking deeper at the capacity of human beings to be able to heal these divisions and come together experientially and begin to take what, after all, as the social primates we are, is a really hard thing to do, which is to begin to find the group to mean all of us worldwide. At a place in which, if we ruin the global climate, all of us suffer. If there's a pandemic, all of us suffers. If there's a worldwide depression economically, all of us suffer, and so on. In that world, that interconnected world, we need to do something that we didn't evolve to do easily, which is to see at an experiential level this core commonality from which cooperation, community, healthy attachment can grow. And coming out of ABCT and look at all these things that are happening, I came away smiling, feeling as though we're getting our act together, no pun intended, and we're entering into an era in which, yet again, I think looking back, we will be able to see that days are getting better. Peace, love, and life, my friends.